Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, January 13th, 2017, the WNW 267. That's right, on Friday the 13th, but I feel lucky. First, I want to talk to you about journalism. Really, this is going to be about journalism. And I think that's going to be the big story of 2017, or I should say, lack of journalism, fake news. In order to have a news operation, the basic premise of news is to be a fair arbiter of the truth. Look back at 2016. Do you think the mainstream legacy dying media was a fair arbiter of the truth? No. No, they were not. And they told us they weren't going to be. In op-ed pieces on the New York Times that, it was their duty and other reporters' duties to stop Trump. And the LA Times talking about how biased they were. Michael Wolff in USA Today saying that, reporters are trying to stop Trump of their own volition. Yeah, right. Yeah, they don't have any bosses that oversee them. CNN and Chris Cuomo, we've done as much as we can for Clinton. I mean, they told us they were going to be biased. They told us they were going to be one-sided. And when you do that, you are indeed fake news. So in this headline, when Trump said CNN was fake news, he was correct. And anybody that's not subscribing to being a fair arbiter of the truth is fake news. And this story on the front page is not news. It is an op-ed piece, but they're passing it off as news. Susan Page, again, you should be embarrassed. You should have made them put op-ed on this front page instead of passing it off as news analysis, like this is a real story, and when indeed it is not. Now, what CNN did a whole show about was about how, we did a story about a intelligence briefing. Oh, okay. And then their story basically was, they gave a briefing in the intelligence, departments. They gave a briefing to Donald Trump, and it could be, very destructive to his presidency, and he could be blackmailed in the future. No, he could not. It was fake, false, phony. Names didn't check out. Michael Cohen, one of his top lawyers in the Trump organization, was supposed to be in Prague conspiring with the Russians. Oops, wrong Michael Cohen. Not the one that works for Donald Trump. Unverified reports, lies, stuff that's just totally crazy. Even the New York Times didn't believe it. That's why they didn't run the report. It was an opposition, a paid report by a former MI6 operative who basically sells dirt. And nobody believed it, and most people didn't believe it in the journalism community. And BuzzFeed, even when they put it out, they went, oh, yeah, some of this is erroneous and fake. I don't know exactly what their exact wording was, but it was not real and unsubstantiated. And why would they re-report that? As an investigative reporter, I used to tell people when people called me on the phone and said, hey, I got this idea. And I got a lot of great leads from people who would call me and tell me about things. And I said, listen, if I do a story with you and you lie to me one time, and I don't mean saying that something was $890 when it was $889.40. I don't mean that. I mean a lie. You lie to me one time, boom, you're done. We're out. And this report, you're going to do a story about a briefing with this report? Well, number one, I wouldn't have even done it. But number two, if you are going to do it, then you have to say, well, most of the stuff, almost all of the stuff in here is unsubstantiated. We called the Trump administration, we called Donald Trump and his people, and he said it's all lies and totally bogus. And, Michael Cohen's never been in Prague, and we can prove it. And it's totally bogus, and this should have never been leaked out. And the story should have been, if this should have never been leaked out, who's trying to damage Donald Trump? You can't just do a story about a briefing and call it news and then lie by omission about how it's totally factually incorrect and unsubstantiated. You can't do that. And that's what CNN, they with Don Lemon on set with Jim Acosta. And Jim Acosta, listen, you were rude to the president. I know your buddies are telling you that it's great and that you're doing a fabulous thing and that you're really doing great work and you're doing journalism with a big J, but you're not. You're being rude. Yeah, I don't care how loud you scream, sir, nearly at the top of your lungs. You'd have never done that with Barack Obama. I work with Jim Acosta. I don't know him, but I work with him at CNN. He was there when I was there. And your buddies may be telling you did great work. Well, you didn't. You were embarrassing. And then, your follow-up question, supposedly by another reporter, after he's already said, I don't have anything to do with Russia. This is a phony, bogus report, fake. This is not a direct quote, but that's basically what he said. Another reporter asked, did you have any dealings with Russia? No. So you're going to go back to that? How often do you beat your wife, Mr. Trump? Yellow journalism? And Jim, if you think that your bosses, your big bosses, the people running Time Warner, not CNN, if you think they think that you're a great journalist and great reporter, think again, my friend. Trump's CNN tirade may affect Time Warner AT&T merger. This is an $85 billion merger. $85 billion. And if you think you're doing your job by omitting things and by going after the president-elect and screaming at him, you are so wrong. You are sadly mistaken. That story should have been really a story about who leaked this and why did they leak it and why are they trying to damage Donald Trump with stuff that's totally bogus? Why would BuzzFeed do this? Why would they even have any kind of a intelligence briefing about something that's totally bogus and wrong and unverifiable? That should have been the story, but it wasn't. And Donald Trump on the campaign trail said he wasn't going to approve the Time Warner AT&T merger. He wasn't going to approve it. You think he's going to approve it now? And back to being a fair arbiter of the truth and fake news. Listen, if you leave out major facts, like, the report that Donald Trump's being briefed on is totally bogus and full of falsehoods and unverifiable, well, then you're not practicing fair journalism. You're not a fair arbiter of the truth. You're just not. And what they wanted to do is say that, it's us doing a story about a real briefing. Sure, you got to fill it out. You can't just leave out all these details, which show the whole thing's bogus. You do a story. You think it's your job as a journalist to do a story about a briefing? And the content is totally fake and bogus. And it was opposition research, and it wasn't generated by the security agencies. That's outrageous. And that's that's their power. Their power is they got to tell you. Remember this. This is why on the Don Lemon show with Acosta and somebody else, they're talking about, we're totally justified in doing this thing. Well, yeah, but you're not totally justified in leaving out major facts like the report is bogus and it's opposition research. That you're not entitled to do if you want to be a fair arbiter of the truth. And why are they fighting so much? Why would they do a whole show about how fair they were and how this is a real story? Because that's their power. And when they are whittled down to just being propaganda media, which to me, that's what it looks like it's been going on for a long time with Chris Cuomo on air saying that, we've done everything we can at CNN, everything we can for Clinton, and Donna Brazell over at CNN giving the questions to Hillary Clinton before these debates, and then CNN finds out about it and they don't fire her, and they wait until the next time they do, then they do, and CNN conspiring with the Clinton campaign. That's not a fair arbiter of the truth, folks, that came out with the emails. And incidentally, the intelligence communities have verified the authenticity of all these emails. And yet the mainstream press, the way they paint this is Trump battles the press. Well, I think the press came and picked a fight with Trump and didn't realize they'd get it right back. And I think Trump won. Especially when you come at him with a bogus story. Listen, there are going to be plenty of things that the press will need to ask the president. About conflict of interest, about what you're doing in the Middle East, about budgets, about health care, about the Justice Department, about voting, about all kinds of different things, Supreme Court nominations, legitimate things that they're going to have to ask about. And when they do really need to ask important questions, now here they've done a fake. They've told us they were going to be biased, and now right at the beginning of the year they come out with this fake news story, and it is a fake news story because it's not news. Especially when you consider, and if they're so upset about the Russians, when you consider Hillary Clinton, while Secretary of State, signed off on the Russians getting 20% of our uranium production in the U.S. after. Several people, I think 9 people, donated a total of $145 million, bribed in my opinion, donated to the Clinton Foundation, which Charles O'Tell says is a global charity fraud. And other high-ranking FBI officials like James Kallstrom, calls it a huge criminal conspiracy. Any questions about that? That's a real story that was documented in Clinton Cash. That was a real story. That happened. Hillary Clinton took donations and then signed off on a fifth of the U.S. uranium production going to Russian interests. Her campaign manager, another real story, bagged a $35 million payday from the Russians. And then you have these bogus stories like, oh, Donald Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, like even he said, yeah, like there's only one Michael Cohen in the world. He says that, I've never been in Prague. Factual errors. One of those factual errors would have been, boom, done. I'm out. We're done. We're not doing this. I'm not doing it. Unless I do a story on about who's leaking this report and why are they trying to smear Donald Trump, which brings me to Glenn Greenwald, the great journalist that did all the work with Snowden. And this is his website, theintercept.com. The deep state goes to war with president-elect using unverified claims as Democrats cheer. This is character assassination. That's what Glenn Greenwald calls it. And I agree with him. And then you see these, creepy ways that the USA Today covers the hearings. And why? Why would the USA Today have creepy ways of covering the hearings? And what am I talking about? So here we have Jeff Sessions, who is going to be Attorney General, replacing Loretta Lynch, who met with ex-President Bill Clinton on her plane in Phoenix, which was a criminal. Then you have him, but that's not the big picture. The big picture is this. Here's the big picture: a protest where the people are holding up, signs and dressed in protest, dressed like Klans people, as if Jeff Sessions is a Klansman. And that's the big, the big picture in the center of USA Today. The bogus protest that lasted for about 2 minutes about his confirmation. Don't you think his picture should have been really big in a nice big setting where he was being asked questions by senators instead of this being the big picture, which is basically just a backhanded way to smear Jeff Sessions to make him look like he's a Klansman when indeed he is not. Now, Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia was an actual Klansman. And that didn't seem to upset anybody too much in the Democratic Party. Senator Hillary Clinton was friends with Senator Byrd. That didn't upset her that he was a really former Klansman when Jeff Sessions had nothing to do with the Ku Klux Klan. But that's the way the U.S. executes some character assassination. What the Trump people are calling these confirmation hearings are murder boards. They're trying to murder people's reputations. Here is E.J. Dionne, which he is a partisan. He is a commentator. Fine. But it just shows you how the left-wing wackadoodles think Obama's moving farewell. His 75-minute speech where he mentioned me, according to a Drudge Report, 75 times. And a terrifying hello, Trump's terrifying hello. Yes, that's right. We forgot that the mainstream media went after Trump and was going to be unfair and biased and try to stop him. And now they're acting as a resistance to Donald Trump and not really covering the news. They're fake news. They're not fair arbiters of the truth. They're fake news. They're propaganda. And then you have, I see this here. Let me go back to this here. Here's a USA Today. I'm just going to stay with this. And this is the best headline they could come up with. Obama leaves complex legacy. Yeah, complex, right. And here's, I'm surprised they put this on here. A failure at home and abroad. Opposing view. That fits more with my view, but I digress. Here is, this is another Washington Post, a reprint in my local paper. 9 of Obama's amazing moments in office. He's wiping a tear from his eye. I thought about this 9 amazing moments, and I thought, what about all the drone murder strikes? What about the murder of a 16-year-old boy by a drone? What about all the collateral damage and the children killed by Obama's illegal drone murder program? What about that? Was that a great moment? What about you can keep your doctors and you can keep your health plan and it's going to be cheaper? Lie. That's a lie. Biggest policy lie in history, Obamacare, which is imploding on itself. I mean, I don't know if it'll implode before they get it repealed or what, but to complete lie. Thank you, Jonathan Gruber, who laid out the lie. And was he helped was one of the big architects of this, and smugly sat and said Americans are stupid, and non-transparency is your friend, and lie. Was that one of the great moments while he was in office? How about all the illegal, the presidential orders, the executive orders, with immigration by making 5 million people, eligible for citizenship and benefits? How about that? Was that a great moment? That got stopped in the court system. Was that a great moment? How about that? How about the red line in Syria? How about that? How about Yemen? How about that, which is one of your success stories? That's a disaster. How about Libya? How about Hillary Clinton's handling of Libya, where people are getting on an inner tube so they could swim across the Mediterranean to Italy? Things are so bad. In Libya, how about that? How about Syria with 500,000 dead and 4 or 5 million displaced? How about that? How about that? How about that? How about that? Is that a great moment? Yeah, no, not a great moment. No, not a great moment. Not a great moment whatsoever. And all that while we're, while the mainstream press is trying to thought shape us, and they're thought shaping us also by saying we're fair arbiters of the truth. That's their power, and they're indeed are not. They're propaganda media, and they're dying. And while we're talking about all this, some big stories are being overlooked, and some of them they're being brought up in the confirmation hearings with some of Trump's big nominees for his cabinet. And here's one: ready for war. U.S. Army moves 2,500 tanks and military vehicles into Europe in the biggest troop transfer since the Cold War. This is the Sun, 1/11/17. 2,500 tanks and trucks moving into Eastern Europe is where they're going, moving into Poland, Eastern Europe. And what are they going for here, folks? Are they wanting war with Russia? Is it so bad that Donald Trump says, maybe we, could maybe work some things out and not have, millions of people killed in the next big great war, World War III? I don't know. But that's a big story that's not getting talked about, and that was brought up with the Secretary of the incoming Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, who was talking about NATO and talking about this troop movement and about what we were putting up against the Russians. So that's a big story that's not getting any real introspection. We're inching towards war, and a couple of different fronts, and one of them is in Eastern Europe. Here's another one. Ex-top Israeli diplomat official, Paris conference, this is conference going to have the 15th of January next week, could lead to U.S. Security Council action against Jewish state. Now, this is a major ally of the U.S. Government, and I am a USA watchdog, so yes, this is a big interest. And then this is the BDS movement. This is going to enrich, they say, and this also came up in the hearings with Rex Tillerson, the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS, against Israel. They're going after the Jewish state, folks. I mean, I remember I told you they made the Western Wall basically Palestinian territory. It'd be illegal for the Israelis, the Jews, to even go in there. It's one of their big religious sites, the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall. And so that in this UN action was basically moved into the Palestinian side of the ledger. Now they're going to have dozens of countries, I think 70 in all, or more than 70, go to Paris in this conference, and they're going to push this BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, and that is going to inflame things in Israel and with the Palestinians and the Israelis and the bordering countries, and that is just going to fan the flames for more war. And also it came up in the confirmation hearings is that, the Trump administration, this is a giant problem, another problem that Barack Obama and John Kerry created for the incoming Trump administration. They're going to have to thwart this as, the U.S. being an ally of Israel. They're going to have to thwart this, and they're going to have to go after countries that are going to boycott, divestment, and sanctions and practice this BDS movement. It's going to be bad financially, and it's going to be bad for the stability of the Middle East. It's going to be bad for all the Muslims, in and around Israel. It's going to be bad for all the Jews in and around Israel. And actually, it's going to be bad for Jews worldwide, I think. So that's another story that's not being done by the fair and objective, legacy media, mainstream press. Gregory Manarino says, listen, I was talking to him today. He's a friend of mine who runs TradersChoice.net, and he says, for starting Friday, it's going to be the moment of truth. I mean, we have this lofty Dow and lofty S&P and lofty, valuations in the NASDAQ. And the valuation is going to have to match the earnings. And that's going to start on the earnings season is going to start soon. That's going to have to match, and the forward guidance is going to have to match. Now, could it go up? Yes. Could go up. If we get good earnings and good forward guidance, yes. If we don't, it'll go down. The trend is going to be down. And here's just a marker that I saw that if things were so good in the markets, that, would Morgan Stanley be cutting investment banking bonuses by 15% and firing 5% of managing directors? Would they be doing that if they thought the market was going to take off? We were going to see 30,000 on the Dow? I don't think so. And neither does Charles Nenner. A lot of folks have been asking for Charles Nenner. He's a market expert. Every market he's an expert in. He's an expert in cycles, war cycles, financial cycles. He in his research, he tells you where the price of gold, silver, interest rates, the dollar, the yen, you name it, cattle futures, wheat, beans, corn. He does everything. And he is going to be the guest for the early Sunday release. Charles Nenner of charlesnenner.com and the Charles Nenner Research Center. Very interesting man, and he has a very interesting take for 2017, his predictions of 2017. He accurately predicted in 2016 that the stock market would not crash. The markets would not crash. Shook his head and said, no way. But 2017 is a different story. You'll want to hear his take on a lot of the things that are coming down the pipe. Thank you so much for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments. Got some of the smartest people on the internet that comment on this site, and your donations. That helps us out. Remember, fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, and above all, spiritually. Fear not. God the Father is firmly in control.